professional talker at Love and Justice podcast at AfterBuzz TV, the internet's favorite Sailor Moon senpai, self-appointed title. Welcome, everyone, to Schmoeville, your favorite after show, the official after show for all things Schmoes Know and Collider Video. I am Ryan Snelling.
And I'm Brian Davids, and I just want to say that I get really uncomfortable when Mark Ellis references Kristian Harloff's golden throat.
It's like, that's a little bit more information. I'm surprised that we haven't speculated on that tidbit before on this podcast. What that actually means.
You don't hear the expression golden throat too often. So, I end up thinking about that phrase far too long whenever he says it. He says it, I don't know, once every few weeks. It's like a recurring thing with Ellis.
I feel like it's every Schmoedown. He says, get your golden throat ready and let's hear. I don't know. He's very enamored with the golden throat. So I don't know. Maybe that's a story for another time. But I am so pumped that we are back here. I want to thank everyone who's listening right now. Thanks to all the people who engaged with us throughout this past week. We're glad you're here. If you're listening to us on the Schmoes Know podcast feed, let me just say thank you. We got great news. A lot of people are listening, and we're very appreciative. Hopefully you guys that are listening through that podcast feed join the Schmoeville Facebook group, because when you consider like the Schmoes Know subscribers, the Schmoeville Facebook group is actually a small percentage, unfortunately. So let's try to get as many people over there. And if you just listen to us even on the SK podcast channel, that's another thing that needs to grow too. That number, I believe it's at like 28,000 for the SK podcast YouTube channel.
That's 28.4.
Yeah. That number's really low too. So if you're listening and you haven't subscribed or followed either of those things, make sure that you do so. That way you can stay engaged as a fan throughout the week, just like us.
One more call to action. We just heard about our big, overwhelming iTunes audience that I'm shocked to hear about. I mean, 25,000 in total is insane to me, but do us a favor. Rate and review the Schmoes Know podcast in iTunes. Help out the entire feed, all of the shows, not just us, the Wanger Show, the Schmoedown Rundown, the main show, JTE Movie Things, whatever's on that feed. Leave a review. It helps everybody out.
Definitely. And make sure that you also keep engaging with us throughout the week. We love talking to you guys. You can follow me on Twitter at WhatUpSnell. And Brian, where you at?
At Kristian Harloff.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. All right, so let's start off with some housekeeping like we usually do. I want to mention a couple things. First off, we will be able to talk to Leanne Lecoultre, the queen of Schmoeville herself and head admin of the Facebook Schmoeville group. If you don't know her, you will. That will come out separately as its own little mini podcast this Monday, so be on the lookout on the SK Podcast channel. Let me also plug real quick what Ellis also plugged on the live show, which is this autoimmune walk. You can find his pinned tweet at Mark Ellis Live, of course. Please go to that website and support the autoimmune walk and donate. I know that he would greatly appreciate it. I know that his girlfriend, Danny, would greatly appreciate it. I am a huge fan of Danny. I know we don't get to talk about her because she's not on Collider. She's not on Schmoes Know. At least I haven't seen her in the Phase 6 era. But go and support her because she's fantastic, and go support Ellis. You know you want to. Hit pause right now. Go to the website. Go to go to Twitter and find that tweet and support that. Anyway,
support Ellis's silver throat.
That's right. Okay, this is something I don't normally do. When we're in this section of the show, it's usually Brian's clarification corner.
Oh, it happened twice. Let's not say usually.
Well, okay. I'm thinking about the future of the show as well. It's gonna keep coming. Come on, you need to clarify. I know you very well. You need to clarify.
When I make a mistake, it's an event because it rarely happens.
Oh, I was just about to say that I rarely get to do this. So are me and you both perfect?
No.
No? Okay. not okay. We're not both perfect, but I do want to take a second. I'll go first, and then I'll let you do your thing. Last week's episode, our boy Mike Blevins, who is always just so nice to me in the YouTube comments.
Your favorite fan.
For a while, I was convinced that it was you on another YouTube profile, but technically that hasn't been debunked, so maybe it still is. But you know what? He's a loyal fan. I'll give him that. He listens every week.
That's disturbing, by the way.
He's a loyal fan. I'll give him that. But man, he just has a problem with everything I do. And last week, he basically said that he had a problem with my points that I made about Beardo. And then the second that you went against me, and then he said that I changed my stance. I don't really see that as the case. I think maybe I was just misunderstood, and I think that's why me and you had talked about it, because my point wasn't coming across very well. So let me just clear it up. I might even be restating exactly what I said last week, but hopefully it just kind of clears the air a little bit. My impression of Beardo on last week's show is that this guy is already a little strange. And they went into the pre-production meeting like they always do, and Brian was just gonna be Brian. It wasn't like a planned, like they wrote this down, hey, we're going to create this character that's gonna be really, really weird, and do this Brian, and then Beardo said okay. I think that Beardo is just a unique individual, and he's gonna have his own identity on the show when he's on camera. And what happened was he came on and was like, hey, I'm just going to play up my weirdness and be a little bit more weird for the camera. And then everyone just kind of loved it. So I can see that. I can see his appearances being very off kilter and strange, but I'm not saying that that was the plan. I just think they're going to continue that way, and we're just going to learn more about Beardo as we go along. So that's all I'm saying. I didn't really even think it was that big of a deal, but just because someone apparently thought it was, I figured that I would address it, and I hope that's case closed. I don't know. That's all I got on that. But
I'm now more confused than ever. But I must say,
Good.
When I tried to plant the oil spill nickname last week, it did make an impression on Kristian, as he referred to him as "Smell My Oil" this week on the live show. So we've got progress.
They love to talk about us on the live show, don't they? I mean,
well, that's why we do this show, is to get mentions on the live show. I mean,
I know we're
feeding our narcissism.
We crave the attention. Okay, let me turn it over to you now. I know that you've got some stuff that you want to clear up before we move on to the Collider topic. So go ahead.
Well, because you were rushing us off stage last week, we forgot a few key points from last week's live show, including the moment where Beardo scared the crap out of Magic Hat Makuga.
Yeah.
Now, I want to briefly discuss this because this is a bold move for an intern, the newest guy on the staff, to come in there and scare the crap out of a seasoned veteran on the show. I mean, that takes some cojones, wouldn't you say?
Oh, I would be scared to death to scare Makuga. There's no way. Like, if I ever met Makuga, I was the intern, I would keep my distance for several weeks before I was comfortable talking to him, especially after our interactions indirectly because of this podcast. So not only is Beardo weird, but he's proven that he's also got some balls on him as well. So
oil spill, if you're listening to this, if Magic Hat Makuga gives you a 6-pack of Magic Hat, make sure to smell it first, just in case. Just in case.
Great advice.
You're going to get some kind of revenge at some point for that.
Great advice. And we even saw it this week as well, where Makuga was... Wait, was that last week? Or was that this week? No, it was last week. I'm mixing up my Schmoeville weeks. Man.
And Beardo wasn't on camera this week, so...
Yeah, no, I'm losing my mind. There's so much Collider content. But anyway, yeah, that was a great point, and... Makuga deserved it, though. I mean, after all those videos that he... I don't think we mentioned that very much last week, but he was scaring everybody in the office, so he definitely deserved it. But it is great and more special that it came from Beardo.
Somebody timestamped the moment when Makuga reacted to Sasha's story about the hole in the closet, and it's just the greatest look. So Makuga, every once in a while, he's very, very useful for some scared reactions. And a couple other points. Mark Ellis' sleep paralysis. I just wanted to quickly mention this because I have had sleep paralysis a few times. And it is definitely terrifying. Sometimes you will imagine that someone is doing it to you or some kind of demon of some sorts. There's all sorts of religious beliefs in some cultures or some spiritual beliefs amongst some cultures that like the devil is trying to pull your soul away from you. There's a whole lore behind it, but every time you get it, you think the next time it happens, I'm going to be ready for it. I'm going to be able to fight it off, and you never can, even though it comes back and you know what it is. The first time it happens, though, it's terrifying. I take it you have not had it?
No, I don't think I've had anything like that. I don't sleepwalk, but that stuff freaks me out, though. It definitely freaks me out, but I've never been victim of that or sleepwalking or whatever. I'm reminded of the scene in Step Brothers where it's supposed to be funny that they're sleepwalking, but I actually find it terrifying, and I can't imagine what my reaction would be if I actually saw someone do that. So,
well, again, it's not sleepwalking. You're sleeping in bed, and your mind is partially awake, but your body can't move. And you try to get up, you try to move, and you can't.
Yeah, it's sort of the opposite of sleepwalking, but I was just thinking about
right. No, I got you, but
that weird stuff in general.
I think it's something that you get as you get older, especially in your 30s. I'm sure certain health conditions lead to it, but
I'm only halfway there. So
right.
I got
in 12 years, when you're 30 years old, right. I'm sure you'll be able to relay then what it's like.
Sure. Absolutely. I'm sure I will. Time will tell.
And lastly, we got confirmation from Beardo's coworker that he did in fact shave his beard for his Lloyd Christmas costume. That was something that I speculated last week could be the case, and sure enough it was. So he wasn't just rejecting his new nicknames.
Did he clear that up on our YouTube comments? Is he a listener of Schmoeville?
One of Beardo's coworkers commented in the YouTube comment space with that information.
That's excellent. Thank you for listening to us. Do you remember his name, or do we have to clarify that for next week?
The name was Adam Goldberg.
I gotcha. Okay. And then the final thing, is this just one more thing that we've got here before we move on to Collider?
Oh, I want to again congratulate Collider on 300,000 subscribers. Yeah. You know, it's an awfully satisfying feeling to know that Collider Video has earned every single one of their subscribers after a 15 to 16 month transition from AMC. When they left AMC, they had a shade over 302,000 subscribers, only to join Collider's channel, which had 20,000 at most. So I want to give credit to Campia, Zen, Mark, Kristian, Schnepp, the hosts, and everybody who stayed on board despite the transition from AMC to Collider. Some people would have been rather upset that their work to that point was ultimately being reset by the transition. Some people would have looked for shortcuts instead of having to build that number back up. But they went the long way, and they're back to where they started, and they're now better than they ever were given the variety of shows and the dream staff they've assembled. It's more rewarding as a viewer when I can watch my loyal viewership lead to good old-fashioned sweat equity. So that is why Collider is my ride or die.
Hey, don't forget your boy at Complex, too.
Mark Fernandez knows how to reward good old-fashioned sweat equity.
Mark Fernandez, next time you talk to him, make sure that you give him my best. Absolutely. He deserves a ton of credit.
We're playing a round of golf this weekend at Pelican, so I'll let you know.
Okay. Are you going to Islands afterwards to eat?
Islands is a not local, I guess it's probably all over the West Coast, but it's a Hawaiian burger chain. It's not fast food, it's sit down, but like the menus are at the table. They used to just serve burgers and fries a la carte. They had salads and stuff, but they never included fries with the burgers. It was always strange for that. Now they include fries, luckily, and it's a step up from your typical fast food burger. It's not bad. It's inexpensive for this area, and it's there. Someone said on the show, they made a great point that once you're in the mood for islands, you cannot settle for anything else. And it's so true, because every once in a while you'll just get a craving for it. And the Maui burger is by far the best burger on the menu.
It sounds just delightful. By the way, I mentioned RB3. Do you know what Qdoba is? Do you have a Qdoba?
Is that a snake?
You don't know what Qdoba is?
I guess it's not a snake then.
Yeah, no, it's not. I asked RB3 during his Q&A last week. I asked him if he had ever been to Qdoba, and he had no idea what it was. But it's a better Chipotle. So I was surprised that they don't have them out there. So
this is a Kentucky thing. Now I see where you're going.
No, it's not just Kentucky, but
South Carolina.
I don't know. Anyway,
West Virginia. Okay.
Off topic. Let's talk about Collider. Okay, let's get to the biggest headline, or at least for me anyway. I mean, this
for me.
Thank you, Dennis. For me, Ken Napzok. This is the first week that we actually feel his presence. He was on camera. Let me just say that I think I'm more excited about Ken being on Collider than I am Jeremy Johns. I mean, he brought, like, we talked about it even last week, and when this was, like, not official, but, like, he hadn't come on screen yet, we talked about how excited we were. But actually seeing it happen and seeing him on the panel, it was just so rewarding for some reason. I was so happy that all of those people were finally together, because I know that they're all best friends, but at the same time, he was just as good on the mic contributing, even though he doesn't watch the movies. And I guess, in a sense, you only have to really keep up with the current news, which obviously we know that he does. I was just so impressed at how well he did, and of course, that's separate from Star Wars Jedi Council, because of course he's going to be able to talk about that all day. But, look, I just want to say that the best way to put it is that before this week, I had always been watching Collider and thought, Collider is great entertainment news, and it's also cool that they happen to be best friends. And now it's sort of like flipped. Like, I can't believe I'm watching best friends just talk about entertainment news. Am I making that clear? Does that make sense?
I follow.
Yeah, it's so much more special, and everything that he brought, and Ellis is absolutely right. Ellis should be afraid. There is another funny guy on the panel, but they have different humors, of course. It was just so good, so good.
That's what's most interesting, is that Ellis is now in a position where he's got to compete for who lands the funniest joke. And Campea, he loves to get some humor in there in some cases, so it's going to be a big pissing contest between all these guys, especially once Jeremy comes on board. And when you said that you were more excited for Ken joining Collider than Jeremy, my buddy Mark Fernandez about had a heart attack. He doesn't want to hear that. He wants to hear that we're equally excited for both men joining the team. But yeah, hey. Kenny was great, and that's the funny thing, is that he doesn't watch movies as much as most people. He has his favorites. He follows the news, so he's always good for input. But he contributes some great jokes, like, my cereal has a crawl, or you can follow me across all social media platforms, including Tinder.
Yeah, and I don't know. I've always thought that Schnepp was funny, but he just brought a whole nother level to it. And also, I feel like I can confidently say that I'm more excited about this than the Jeremy thing, just because we had that week of Jeremy, and I said it on this podcast before, like, Jeremy on Movie Talk is the Jeremy that I like. I'm not the biggest fan, or I don't follow his YouTube channel, so I'm definitely, don't get me wrrong, happy that Jeremy is coming. And when all of these people were together, when I'm trying to clear my name for Mark Fernandez, okay, you're welcome. I'm excited for all of it, but I was like just grinning the whole time that Ken was on screen. It was just, there's something about it, and I could not be more happy. Even they posted a video, I don't know if you saw it. Did you see when Ken walked in on Ellis in the office with the trying to ask for the bathroom key? Did you catch that video?
I can't believe they actually have a bathroom key. I mean, I hope that was just for the bit's sake.
It's got to be just for the bit. There's no way that there's a key for that.
Now, I was grinning from ear to ear like Ben Affleck in Boiler Room until Thursday night on the live show. We'll get to that later. But I love the discussion about the Star Wars opening crawl, and they kept cutting to sad Ellis during Campia's rant. Once again, they're using Mark Ellis's acting skills, which he picked up at Ashburn's Royal Academy for acting, and I hope they do this more often. I mean, who says you can't add a little bit of entertainment value to a new show with just subtle little things like this? Would you be opposed to little gimmicks here and there when it comes to cutting to Sad Ellis or other inserts like that?
Are you kidding me? Hell no. I would love it. I would absolutely love it. And I think they're gonna loosen up a little bit. I mean, the fact that Kenny and Kristian and Ellis have this dynamic and they're going to cut up, and then Campia will have his bully Jeremy in there. It's all going to loosen up, I think, a little bit. And like I said, it changed from an entertainment show that happened to be done by friends to friends doing an entertainment show. And I think that's just the best way. It might confuse you, but that's how I saw it. It just seemed to switch in my head for me. It's just I'm thrilled. If you can't tell, I'm just absolutely thrilled by all of this. To go back to your actual question, though, yes, I would love that as well.
I mean, Campia is a routine guy. That's why he senselessly explains the buy or sell segment every week, even though he doesn't have to. And have you ever actually analyzed what he says there? I mean, there's no explanation that you need to give, as I've been saying for a while. But that's not my ultimate point here. If Campia can loosen up on his routine, they have more opportunity to do these moments of entertainment. And I think when you bring in a Jeremy Johns, you bring in a Ken Napzok, I think that comes with the territory. So I think Campia is already on board for a little bit of experimentation.
Time will tell. We're going to be talking about this stuff a lot more. I believe Jeremy's first day on Movie Talk is next week, so we'll definitely be covering that. Speaking of routinely explaining things, let's talk about top 10 for a brief moment.
Real quick on Movie Talk. I got a couple more points. Sorry, I should have spoken up sooner. I just want to say their costume play was incredibly weak. Incredibly weak.
Yes, I was going to talk about this compared to the TV Talk crew, because TV Talk again proved why they are the life of the party.
Now, I said last week TV Talk would own the office in the costume department, but Campia, I don't know what Campia's mask was supposed to be, but it gave him a lisp. It was ridiculous, whatever he was wearing. I don't know what it was, but I was absolutely amused, though, by the fact that Ashley was dressed as Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman in the same episode where Campia again mispronounced Gal Gadot's last name. So I just want to get that out there.
And it was great. They were both Wonder Woman, which was fun, and I think it was intentionally planned. I think one of them said on Twitter. I think another person also said that Campia's mask came from Metalocalypse, I think.
Oh, that could be. Maybe. I think I've seen Schnepp wear that before, actually. Yeah. That kind of looks familiar.
I think, yeah, whatever they said, it led me to believe that Schnepp had that lying around because of some work that he had done, and I think that Campia just threw it on. And Ellis recycled the raccoon head, and I don't know. I thought that was weak too. Especially if you followed him on Twitter, him and Danny, they dressed up as something different like every day last weekend. Right. But he was weak on Collider.
His Twilight Zone thing was great. I don't know why he went with the Fox thing. That was disturbing.
Not sure.
But there was a moment that was hilarious, though. Someone was coughing at the Wanger table, one of the hosts, I believe. And Kristian was so thrown off by this cough because he was midpoint as someone was coughing. But then Campia is like pointing his finger probably to the engineer to turn off the mic or something, but the engineer wasn't responding in time. So it was this great little imperfect moment that drives them crazy but gives us great moments of entertainment.
You said the engineer, but do we want to go ahead and blame Cody, or do you just want to keep it at whoever was engineering that day?
See, I don't know if it was Cody or Dennis. I don't know who's manning the helm most of these days, but don't they need a cough button at this point? I mean, every episode somebody has to pull their mouth away from the mic and cough.
Yeah.
They got to get some cough buttons in there.
It was a weird week for the mics. I'll have to say, you're right. I noticed the coughing, and there were also a lot of instances across the Collider programming where mics were just turned off. Like Sinead's mic on TV Talk was off quite often, and
the left side was lower than the right side. That was what I consistently kept hearing.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Copster, but that's something that you're going to have to make fun of us for being that nitpicky. But it was just because it stood out. Like, I don't ever recall that happening on other weeks, at least this much. So I thought that was very strange.
So let's talk top 10 like you wanted.
Yeah, well, it's more so about it's more about from the fan perspective. It's not about top 10 itself, because I was talking to someone in the Schmoeville Facebook group, and this was just like a quick little mention. He said that because the top 10 is on hiatus, that he was now limiting the Collider programming that he was watching. And his message was sort of that the best way he knows to protest this is to let the company know that he is dissatisfied. And I'm not really sure that I like that mentality, because I think that whatever's going on with top 10, and we are free to speculate until we get more answers, but look, the fan said, I'm not going to name him because there's no reason for people to bother him, and it was just a quick thing, but it's something I want to discuss. It's sorry, your chair creaking threw me out.
That was loud, wasn't it?
That's okay. Back on point. He said that it was a bad business decision. He thought it's a bad business decision to not move forward with top 10. I think it's the exact opposite. When you don't have a show that is giving you what you need it to, when you're giving up the time and the effort to produce the show and it has very little return, and I'm mainly just talking about the views that it had, you have to figure out what's going to work. Now, again, I've said it before, I'm a fan of this experimental programming, and I hope that this doesn't discourage them from trying other things. But I guess if this wasn't working for them for so long, the right move is to grow and make that change. And you should also, I get supporting Save Top 10, but at the same time, they've also said that it is coming back in a different form, and that I don't think will ever change. So I guess what I'm saying is I love the support for Top 10. I don't think the way to go about it is to quit watching other programming and to just be patient. And I think that whatever they come up with, if you're a fan of Collider, you're going to support that too. So that's sort of my perspective, and we haven't gone over this. You're just now hearing this. What is your reaction to that? How do you think that people should be thinking about this moving forward?
Well, I think some people take for granted what it takes to produce an episode of any given show. You have to not only pay the people doing the show itself, you have to pay for the engineer to spend the time engineering the show. You have to pay the graphic designer for graphics. So everything costs money, and if this show is not getting enough viewers, it is taking time away from a show that could be getting enough viewers to justify the resources and money being put into it. So it's not just a matter of, oh, they've got an hour to spare to give to these guys. There's a lot more that goes into it than we see on the screen.
Yeah, well said. I mean, I just think, just be patient, guys. They even, and we'll talk about this later when we get to the panels, but Campia confirmed that they're still working on it. I mean, they're working on it. So just be patient. I'm sure that whatever they come up with, we're going to love. And Roka's not going anywhere, because I think he is consistently a part of the Friday Movie Talk, and that doesn't mean that he can't be on another day of Movie Talk, and that doesn't mean he also can't be on another show. So you're going to get your Roka. I want to see Nos do something. Hopefully Nos is part of the new top 10. I'm assuming that he will be. Time will tell. Let's just be patient. I don't think the way to go about this is to stop watching Collider stuff. A show that I definitely don't want people to stop watching is TV Talk. We briefly discussed their costumes and what about those impressions of each other? Those were so much fun.
Here's the thing. The SPR experience, she was my favorite because I could tell that she put the most preparation into David Griffin as her costume. She nailed his mannerisms. she nailed his style of speaking, the timing, the type of wording he likes to use. And what impressed me the most, though, is she flubbed his plug as he's known to do. The guy always flubs his plugs for whatever reason. So I thought she crushed it. I mean, they were all good, don't get me wrong, but I just could tell that she put a little extra time into getting the little nuances down, and I really appreciated that.
I went the other way at first. Like, we were talking while watching the show, and actually at the start I thought that Sasha's impression was the weakest, and it was really that the ending, like that you mentioned, that really turned it around, and I thought that she did a great job. I loved what Sinead was doing as Makuga. This isn't going to be the last time that I say this on this episode, but I thought Makuga killed it as Sasha. Like, he picked up on things that she does that I didn't pick up on. But, and again, with Sasha, the gimmick with the hats, that was great. I think I was most disappointed with David as Sinead, because
that's a hard one though for him.
Sure, it's difficult. I think what was happening was he was sort of portraying Sinead off camera, because it didn't really feel like Sinead to me. So I think it was just more of like an inside thing. Like, maybe they understood what he was doing, but I didn't. I guess because I don't know Sinead as well. So that was the one I was just kind of like, okay, whatever. But
here's the thing. Makuga will get more attention for his Sasha routine because Sasha's a character. Griffin is a bit more understated, but if you look closely between Sasha and what she was doing and the real David Griffin, you will see that she nailed so many of the subtle details, like the way he sits at the desk. I mean, she got everything down that he does. The little things that no one else would notice, she nailed. So it's not just the SPR experience bias that I have. It's a simple fact that she did her homework, and I appreciated the nice little touches that she added. And the hat thing was brilliant because, like she said, he has no team loyalty. He's always wearing a different hat every week. So I thought she put way more time into it than it might seem to some people.
Do you have a Ryan Snelling impression?
I'm working on it. Someday I will do it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Someday I will do it.
Okay, because I love impressions, and I'm very flattered when people impersonate me. There's a few people that I know personally that do pretty good me. So, yeah, give yourself time. I want to hear it when it's really good. So take as much time as you need. We'll get there. Maybe I'll work on a Brian Davids impression as well. I love that Makuga. Again, I'm going to praise Makuga a lot on this episode. But this is half praise. I love that he had the balls to put The Walking Dead all the way at the bottom of the show in the highs and lows. That is sticking it to the fans. I liked it. I smirked a lot when that was just a casual mention in the highs and lows.
They get a recap show. I don't feel bad.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree. But I mean, come on. It's surprising that they don't include it in the. I'm not saying they have to. I love it. I'm not a fan of the show, so they can do whatever they want. And even if they did talk about it, I would just skip over it anyway. But
you're not a fan this week
of The Walking Dead.
You were a fan last week.
Stop. I don't want to regurgitate our Twitter arguments that we had on that show.
Thank you.
The reason why I said it's half praise is because I love that he had the balls to do that. But he doesn't have the balls to watch Bates Motel, which is the most ridiculous thing I've heard him say in a long time. In the past few weeks, that show is not scary at all. It's not, and he also told me personally when I asked him why they don't talk about Bates Motel on TV Talk, which would have been early in the TV Talk days. He just said it wasn't his thing. So I'm not sure what he has against this one show, but he's able to talk about, every obscure show that Cinemax plays. But, I mean, are we on the same page, Bates Motel not being scary?
Here's the thing. You're right. It's not a scary show. But here's the thing. Makuga and I, Magic Hat and I, have very similar taste in television. Of course, I don't like The Walking Dead. He does, so it's not identical. But typically we line up. Bates Motel seasons 1 through 3, average television. But season 4, is something pretty damn special. I mean, the acting was off the charts. It was his best season by far. Really bold storytelling decisions. So, Makuga, Magic Hat, if you're listening to this, get caught up just to watch season 4. It's not scary. If you can handle The Walking Dead, you can easily handle Bates.
Yeah, and he said that his impression came from the first episode, which is still not scary. Like, there's scary moments in a couple episodes later on, but I don't know. I just thought it would. If they get around to season 5 is coming up and it's their final season, if they get to that point and they don't talk about it and it's glaringly absent from TV talk, it's not going to make a whole lot of sense. I don't know what it is about this show, but everyone watch, like Brian said, watch seasons 1 through 3 on Netflix. 4 will be out soon, and demand they talk about Bates Motel because it's the most underrated show on television. Kristian's really pissed that we're talking about this right now because he hates TV. Let's speaking of horror, are you ready to move into just a quick point about nightmares?
Sure, man.
Do you got one this week?
Nightmares is a show that I watched on Collider Video this week, and it was a solid episode as usual. That is my burning take this week.
Wow, I'm a little underwhelmed by that. Are you sure you can't come up with
You go with yours and I'll come up with one.
Brian Davids, silent. My goodness. Look, let me just say that it was fun for me because, as you know, I'm preparing for our team match in the Schmoedown that has not been announced officially, but there will be a day when I come to California and I participate in the team Schmoedown. I am currently watching a bunch of old stuff, and I took the opportunity during the Halloween week to catch up on some old horror, and I was just in the mood for nightmares. And I'll tell you what, the most obvious statement out there, nightmares is a lot more enjoyable when you're watching horror. And I think I need to give horror a chance, and it's going to increase my fandom for nightmares. You're absolutely right. Nightmares was a great episode this week, and that's simply all I have to say, but I'm a little bit more excited about it than usual. So, Riley, I hope you're listening, and I hope that you're grinning, because I'll probably be back next week.
Oh, I know what I wanted to say about nightmares, because it relates to me being right about something. The last couple weeks, I've been telling you guys, nightmares is not in jeopardy whatsoever. The horror genre is healthy. It's got a cult following, 30,000 viewers per episode. Yeah, they've had some better episodes, but that's a nice baseline. Yes, I know Top 10's numbers were about 10,000 lower on average, but that's regardless of the point. The point is here, John Campea said during one of the panels, there's no chance of nightmares going anywhere.
Yeah.
And so when I heard that, I raised my fist in the air and I pumped it because I knew that I could gloat on this show that I was once again right.
Well, I guess my question doesn't really qualify anymore. I wanted to ask you this. Did you find it strange that he was so assured about that, though? Like, I know that you agree with him, but it was like an instantaneous, nightmares is going nowhere. And it was just such a different attitude, at least for me, because you've heard me say it, and I know you don't agree with me, but like, nightmares is like the next one up in terms of lowest views. And I haven't updated my stats on that, so I'll check that after the episode. But
it's still 30,000 baseline. Depending on the topic, it can go much higher than that. But given what they've accomplished with After Ash, and given how healthy the genre is as a whole, and the fact that they need Clark at their channel right now in the worst way, there's no way it was ever in jeopardy. And I mean, I tried to explain all these things. No one wanted to accept it, though. And Campea and I often think alike in these cases, but here's what's interesting. Clark has been pounding the pavement. I saw her on Fat Man on Batman. She was promoting the show. She gave her 5 favorite horror movies for Halloween or something like that. I've seen her on a couple other things as well, promoting the show. So I think she's really putting in a conscientious effort to promote the show, grow the show. I think they probably, probably had a talk with her and said, what can we do to boost this up? And now she's doing some promotion for it. So I like that they are just trying to push things higher. That's always a good thing.
Right. I caught this after we recorded last week, so I didn't get to mention it. But not only was she on Movie Fights to promote it, she hosted Movie Fights. So that was really great that she exposed Nightmares to that audience. And I mean, you're absolutely right. The Nightmares thing, more so than Top 10, it just has that potential with the connections, like you said, with Ash vs. Evil Dead. There's so many things that you can do with Nightmares, and I think they'll get there if they continue to grow and they continue to convince naysayers like me that we can appreciate that show as well. So more than usual, I'm excited about it. So
I just want to say, when I saw her on Movie Fights, I absolutely panicked for a minute, because we've been talking about how important she is to this channel right now.
Yeah,
and the Schmoedown. I mean,
absolutely. I think there's nothing to it aside from the fact that she's just a great fill-in for whatever reason Andy wasn't there. She was a great fill-in, did a great job as host. She obviously is a pro and can do that, and she got to promote Nightmares as well. So,
and she still does stuff for Nerdist as well. I don't know her exact role at Nerdist, but I'm pretty sure she does some stuff for them as well. I can't keep track of all of their different jobs. They're all like Jamaicans, basically, or the majority of them are like Jamaicans. No offense, Jamaicans, but
is that racist? I'm not.
I don't know. You never know anymore. So I just want to make sure, in case comparing someone's work ethic to a Jamaican is offensive in 2016, I just want to cover my tracks. Can we discuss Crash Course for a minute?
Yeah, go for it.
Crash Course, as we've discussed in recent weeks, the most successful one so far was the Mace Windu is Not Snoke one that Kristian did. And the fact that it's Star Wars obviously is a big indicator as to why it did so well. People eat up the theory stuff. And so it was no surprise that they took the opportunity to make another Star Wars related video that disproves Boba Fett is not Snoke. Mark Ellis took the lead on this. And so this one's already doing pretty well at 20K. I like that they recognize the trend as to Star Wars being the most successful one. For some reason, Deathstroke still hasn't done anything more than what we discussed last week at 16K. I'm really surprised that didn't take off. But as far as the Boba Fett one, really well done. And besides being informational, they're really working in these entertaining moments. I mean, there's a moment where Kristian chimes in at the Jedi Council desk. It's not canon. I mean, he yells at the screen. There's a moment where they cut to Schnepp, and I think he's mocking the sweaties like he likes to do. So they're finding these ways to make these videos not just informative, but entertaining as well. So keep it up.
There's going to be one video that just goes crazy viral. And if you go to Stuckman's channel, and I think Stuckman, I don't know if he has like 800,000 subscribers. I might be giving him too much credit. But just off the top of my head, I think that's how many he has. But before, when I started following him, he maybe had half that. Maybe not even. But he had this video, and I was so surprised that one video happened to go viral, and it was just like the ending of Prometheus explained or whatever. And more than any of his other videos, it had like over 1 million. Like, it was clearly something that just nailed it because of the time and place that video was. And that's going to happen to Collider. I think it's just a matter of time. Those videos are really going to pay off. But of course, like you said, the best part about those videos is the slightly different dynamic that we get from our cast or crew. So I really do appreciate all of those. I love that they also acknowledged, and I can't remember if this was on Movie Talk when they were plugging it, but I love how they acknowledged immediately that people are already complaining that they've done 2 Star Wars fan theory debunked videos. But hey, that's the kind of video that's going to kill it, though, on YouTube.
You go where the numbers take you, so you can't blame them. Oh, and by the way, Jeremy Johns is joining the channel next week, so
yeah,
how they utilize him in those videos is going to be rather interesting.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you think they're going to use him a lot for those videos primarily?
Dude, they are going to use him in as many places as they can. That's what my buddy Mark Fernandez brought him in for. He's not. If you think he's just going to do movie talk 4 days a week and then go home and put his feet up at the community pool, that's not happening. They're putting him to work. By the way, we have some Chris Stuckman news to report later in this episode. Stay tuned.
Yeah. I just pictured Jeremy Johns coming into movie talk and then going to Islands afterwards and then taking an Uber to get some Qdoba elsewhere. That's how I picture it.
Finding a new barber, a new stylist to make his hair extra douchey, as he likes to say.
That's a good point.
Can we discuss the LA Comic-Con Schmoedown panel?
Yeah, let's. I think that'll cap off the Collider discussion. I think.
Fine.
Let's. I mean, you can talk about whatever you want. I want. Is that it for you? The panels, or do you have more that you want to discuss?
No, that's it. I want to get to the panels.
Okay. Okay. I figured we'll talk about all the panels, and then we'll end on the Schmoedown panel, and that'll be a neat segue. Let's start with the first panel that was released, the Schmoes Know panel. What did you think about it?
Kristian wasn't there. Makuga wasn't there. Sasha was supposed to be there, but she wasn't there. So it didn't go quite as I expected, but it was still entertaining nonetheless. I think they played Schmoes Choice a little bit. I mean, I didn't really learn too much. I still enjoyed spending time with these guys like I always do, but I gotta say my favorite panel was still the Schmoedown one, just because they had so many tricks up their sleeve for that panel by comparison. But it was fun. It was a panel. It's there really for people that are in attendance, get a chance to meet their heroes, etc. So I don't know. I don't have any huge thoughts on the Schmoes Know panel. Sorry.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the Schmoes Know panel took place on Sunday because that was the day of Kristian's anniversary. Is that correct?
Correct.
It just felt like the crowd, there wasn't as much crowd at the Sunday con like there was with Heroes and Schmoedown. So I thought that was kind of disappointing. There was just the Schmoes Know panel came out first, but as the week went on, it seemed to be that there was like just less energy, and I don't know if it was because the crowd seemed thin, or it was because they were missing those great personalities, or both. But I thought the production, again, this was the first one that we saw, the production of it I thought was great. And I've seen some other channels do these kind of panels, Screen Junkies included. I thought the production quality was great. All the mics were on, and you could hear everyone. And I'm not sure who did it. Because I think a couple of the Wanger crew actually came on screen, so I wasn't exactly sure who was holding the camera. But I'll just give credit to everyone who produced those videos, because I thought you pulled it off. I thought they were all great. So
yeah, compared to years past, you could actually listen to this one and hear what people were saying. Mm-hmm. In years past, you could not hear a damn thing in most cases. So, great job, guys.
What did you think of the Heroes panel?
Haven't watched it yet. See,
I watched about half of it. I can't speak for the second half that I didn't see, obviously, but it was just essentially an episode of Heroes. They just went over the news and sort of discussed it with each other and discussed it with the people, and I was a little bit disappointed. I don't know what I expected. The video was like an hour and a half, so I thought that I would have loved to have heard, and maybe they did it. But again, I'll have to go back and finish it. I'm hoping to get more from like Stepp and hear about more of his projects, maybe hear some cool stuff that Robert Meyer Burnett, well, was he there? No, he wasn't there. Excuse me. It was Ashley B. Robinson and Jason Inman.
Robert was elevating his ankle.
That's right. I would have loved to have just heard more about them personally, and maybe when I finish the panel, I'll get to that. But the first half was just an episode of Heroes. So I don't know if that interests you, but it's there if you want to watch it, I guess.
I'll give it a run through tomorrow morning during my morning workout.
Let's just talk about the Schmoedown panel then, because that was your favorite. What did you love about it, Brian?
Well, here's the thing. There are things that I love. There are things that I didn't love. In interest of full disclosure, the fan Schmoedown was an absolute disaster. They know it. Let's not beat around the bush. And look, you got to give props to these two guys for even stepping forward. A lot of people would be too scared to do it. But man, I mean, these were some softball questions that were being served to them, and they were guessing in most cases and not even coming close. So that did not go as planned. So hopefully, having done it 1 year at this point, hopefully next year they'll know what to do to improve the segment, because the segment or the idea itself is a great idea. I just think they have to refine one aspect of it, and it'll be a big hit next year.
I don't know if I agree that they were softball questions. I think I would just say that they were fair questions. And I was actually surprised. I thought that they were going to get softball. So I don't agree with that. I thought that they didn't hold back, essentially.
Softball for me, of course.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But
JTE was having an aneurysm on the side of the stage. I mean, he was going crazy. Rocha was going crazy.
But that just that shows how good that these people are. So it's easy to forget that when you bring in an amateur, it could be a disaster. I'd go. I mean, if I was up there, I wouldn't have done any better. So I'm not going to give those guys a hard time. But I mean, I agree with you. I'm going to give them some credit. But I thought the questions were pretty fair, and it was funny. It was funny to see all those guys go nuts when you could tell that they knew the answers. I thought it was too much that they put the poor guy up against Dan Murrell. Like, why not put him up against like RB3 or somebody?
It's a bigger thrill to play the champ. That's a great story to tell. You end up volunteering and you play the champ. That's a big surprise.
But is it a great story to tell if he has to say, I got destroyed by Dan Murrell? Because that made it. I mean, you're guaranteeing.
That's a great company to be in. Being beaten by the champ is a big deal.
Hey, I wouldn't complain getting to talk to Dan Murrell. I'd love to anytime, but I think it just like automatically lessens the quality when you put him up against the champ. Like there was no.
I mean, I wish that it was more competitive, but I mean, they weren't going for a super competitive match. I mean, putting them up against Dan, they knew that Dan was going to smoke whomever came in his path. But if they got something competitive out of it, they wouldn't have minded. But I mean, there's something about Mary. You would have gotten that question. I mean, there was some far easier questions than you're remembering. But there was some great moments though.
Oh yeah,
where Rocha's talking smack to Sneider, and Sneider's like, Rocha's like, excuse me, all you do is write articles to Sneider, and Sneider's like, all you do is aggregate them. So there's great banter back and forth. Andy Signor challenged Ken. I like that a great deal. Once again, Andy, Ken is ours now. Thanks again, keeping him warm on your couch. Mance challenged Rocha, something that we heard about through the grapevine. I just love these two bickering. I love these two bickering at each other. It never gets old, even though they've done it like 6 times by now.
I can't imagine what it would have been like to actually been there in the crowd. I would have erupted the second I heard Scott Mance's crazy voice. I would have gone nuts. That was my favorite moment. And I think I caught some of it on Wendy. I think it was Wendy who put it on Instagram. So yeah, I saw it before the panel was released, and I was just so excited. I cannot wait to see that unfold. My goodness.
And then Andy Signor surprised everybody and showed up, and he mocked the fact that Dan is the champion of their league, even though he's part of Screen Junkies. And it's funny, look at John Campia's face when Signor is mocking the fact that Dan is the champion of their league. Like, Campia, very competitive guy. I don't think some people realize that, but very competitive. There's this look on his face where it's just like I've got to put a stop to this. Like, Campia cannot let this stand. He cannot let this competition go their way any longer. So really? I don't know. There's just a moment where I'm like, I wonder what Campia is thinking about right now, because he was in his own head right there.
Oh my goodness, I'm excited. I have to go back. I did not catch that at all.
And because you're big into facial expressions, I'm now looking at people's facial expressions when they're not talking, when they're just surveying what's going on around them. So there you go.
That was a good one. I like it.
Like we said, Campia said there's no chance that Nightmares is going away.
Yeah.
Kristian updated us about the upcoming matches. We've got Wolves of Steel versus Real Rejects, the Wangers versus Mega Powers, Makuga v. Harloff, as we've heard about already. And then, of course, the Campia Napzok Whitwer versus Freddie match in December. So that's the big promotion, as well as, of course, Top 10 versus the Patriots. They didn't know at the time that the Patriots, I mean, they knew, it just wasn't known to us that the Patriots would be the team to face Top 10. So I cannot wait for that matchup.
Definitely. Did you notice the audible gasp when the fan asked about Top 10? Like, everyone in the crowd was like, oh, shit.
The room just died. The room just died. And Campia gave a very cagey answer. You know he wanted to say more, but Roca and Nost were so happy, though, that somebody asked. Because
definitely, yeah.
that shows support. That shows people miss it. So I'm sure they were extremely happy that someone stepped up and asked that.
Yeah, I mean, I would be too. That hashtag Save Top 10 is still going strong. So, okay. Like I said, to cap it all off, the productions of those were great. So, no complaints. I mean, thank you for putting those up, making me feel like I was actually there in LA. I can't wait to see more of those and learn more about you guys. Because, like you said, hearing from fans, getting to ask those type of questions, just like any Q&A segment, you get to have some more fun with the guys and learn more about them. So that's always good. So
what's interesting about seeing pictures from that event is that you get a better read on people's heights, plural, I guess. And so you see fans taking pictures with like Riley and whomever, but we get a better feel for how tall each person is. So certain people are shorter than you think. Certain people are taller than you think. Every time I see Schnepp taking a picture with somebody, I'm reminded about how damn tall he is. It's staggering how tall he is. But yeah, we always see them sitting down, so it is weird to see them standing when we're not used to that. So pointless detail.
Ashley Victoria Robinson is actually the size of the pencil I'm holding in my hand. Like, you would never know because she's just sitting in a chair, but she is so tiny. A point I didn't think about, but thank you very much, Brian, for your insight. I love it. Are you ready to go into the Schmoedown?
Team Patriots versus Team Heroes.
Yeah.
I just gotta say, Team Patriots might be my favorite team to watch now that Mark and Kristian have disappeared off the face of the earth.
Would you call them a team, though? Because you could argue that Jeff Sneider is just carrying this damn thing.
See that? Come on, people. Come on. They are a fun team to watch. My mutual follower, Jeff Sneider, and I, we shoot the shit once in a while. I love seeing that guy on screen, especially in combination with JTE. So, my favorite team by far to watch right now.
You got a double dose of Sneider this week then, so you must have been very happy. I mean, I was happy to see Heroes again because I was so excited after their debut, and I think I even mentioned it last week that I want to see more from Robert Meyer Burnett.
I thought they were kidding. I thought they were kidding about his ankle injury. I thought it was just like a random joke by Ellis, like, oh, why would he joke about him spraining his ankle at a dog shelter? And yet it was true. And he went out there and was limping to the stage. And then, of course, JTE and Jeff mocked the fact that he was limping.
You're right. Ellis was on his game in both matches. He was, like, extra funny.
Did he meet your satisfaction this week?
Oh, he did. He did.
Okay, just making sure.
Making fun of the vitamin water. Every joke he threw out in both matches were just quality. I was also reminded of that horrible match between Patriots and Mega Powers. They won 18-3. My goodness, that was a. What do you think about Snyder's tank tops?
Is you really want to know my opinion on the man's wardrobe?
Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, I've never seen a grown man wear a tank top like that.
Clearly you have not been to Orange County or LA before. The tank top is quite big in the late summer months out here.
I haven't seen a tank top since Ryan Atwood's wife beater on the OC.
See, that I wouldn't even call that a tank top. I just call that a wife beater. The tank top is a bit fuller. It shows less. It's not as see-through. It's a more versatile shirt, if you will. But yeah, they're huge out here. I mean, look, you were in the music scene for a little bit. The music scene, the Warped Tour scene, adopted the tank top like crazy.
Yeah, you're right. I guess it's just me then.
And they wanted to show their tattoos off. That's why they adopted the tank top. It's a true story. That's why they did it.
What did you think of the match overall?
Great match. Great match. I thought JTE could have had a bigger protest about the Miss Elastic point, which was Elastigirl, apparently. Because, like we discussed a couple weeks ago, 6 Degrees got a very generous answer in regards to No Country for Old Men, the bolt gun, air gun thing. So JTE could have put up a fight based on that scenario with 6 Degrees. I was surprised he missed certain questions like Juno, but I was equally surprised that John Schnepp was able to tie it at 3-3 with his Full Metal Jacket answer at the end of round 1. So great back and forth for a while, but obviously round 2 is the key. It's always the key. The wheel's the key. Patriots blew it open at that point. And, I mean, of course, Heroes caught up a little bit, but that really decided the match, of course. And Patriots spun comedy. They spun again. They got ScarJo. I'm not intimidated by categories like ScarJo or Sandra Bullock. I don't know why people are so scared of those. I mean, we know their movies pretty damn well, all things considered, even though they're not our immediate go-tos. I mean, we all end up seeing their movies, correct?
Pretty much. I mean, I think Sandra Bullock or Julia Roberts might throw me off because I don't think of those actresses as being relevant recently. So if there's ever an actor or actress that comes up that's like totally relevant in the now, like ScarJo, I think I would do pretty well.
I forgot you're 19 years old, so forgive me. Sometimes I lose the age gap, but
I think my age has changed 3 times in the recording of this podcast so far. But
at least.
I'm always surprised by what certain people's weaknesses are. So the fact that Jeff Sneider and JT, I guess I could see JT not being comfortable with comedy. That was just surprising that neither of them thought that they could handle that. But of course, they did a great job with ScarJo. They put him in the lead 12-3. I was really disappointed with the Jon Favreau ScarJo question.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that they didn't think about that at all. And then especially Schnepp, because when Schnepp and Robert Meyer Burnett had the opportunity to steal, they just threw out a number. Yeah. It was like they hadn't. The other team needs to remember. Yeah, and I don't know if they did this, so it's just something to bring up. The other team, when you're playing this Schmoedown, you have to be thinking about it in your head, and it was just like what, in case you get the steal, what you're gonna answer with, because it just felt like he threw that out and wasn't actually thinking. If you took like 1 second to think, you would have come up with that answer. So that was a little disappointing.
But the key for Team Heroes is, what do they get on the wheel? They got Julia Roberts first. They spun again. They got Tom Hanks. Obviously, they would have preferred comic book movies, but Tom Hanks, that's not a difficult category, I must say. I mean,
I agree.
We've all seen his movies too. So, Radio Flyer, that question, that's a movie I watched a million times growing up, even though it's a very dark story. I was shocked that they got that. I was shocked that they got Dragnet. I was shocked that they brought it up to about 13-11. But then, for some reason, they could not remember his wife in The Burbs, Carrie Fisher. And that's really where Patriots opened the door again. 15-11, going into round 3. Round 3 had one of the... Skalicki, man. Once again, Skalicki. The one-pointer named 2 actors who were killed in both Alien, Predator, and Terminator. I mean, what? Name 2. That is so unfair if you're not getting a similar question if you're the other team. I don't mind these questions as long as the other team has to get one of these absurd questions. I don't care that it's a one-pointer. I just care that the other team also has to answer. Name 3 of the 5 actors that were in 21 Jump Street as well as ER. I mean, I need both teams to have questions like that.
I'm with you. So we've been debating like whether like 2-part answers should exist in the Schmoedown. I think that as long as like round 3, because there's levels of difficulty. So I think that there are places for those types of questions, and I agree 100% that the other team should also have them. I don't think I'm quite on board with the fact that they should get rid of them. I don't know if you're still on board, but you mentioned that either last week or the week before. But
either get rid of them or give one to the other team too, because in the final round, in round 3, it is such a huge disadvantage if one team has to answer one and the other team has to answer what movie did Scarlett Johansson get introduced in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, you got to have balance in that regard. So keep the questions, just balance it out for both sides.
I know that Skalicki comes up with questions, but I don't know who organizes them, whether it's Riley or Kristian and Mark. But
yes, I think Skalicki does everything.
I think there should be better organization with those types of questions. I mean, all of that could be prevented with proofreading of the questions before going into the match. But
Skalicki.
I had like 2 notes. I usually write a page of notes per match, and I didn't have as many notes for whatever reason, but the one thing I wrote down was that Terminator Predator alien question, because I knew that you would have a field day with that. That's difficult. I mean, to be able to think of it that quickly, at least. I mean, I would have guessed just any name, because like immediately Bill Paxton came to mind, because I'm thinking of all the actors that, and of course those aren't the Lance Henriksen, like he's not the most notable actor out there. I believe that's the actor that Robert Burnett guessed. It's just a hard question to be able to think of that quick. Yeah,
he was bickering over Henriksen too, because for reasons we won't get into, there's some debate about one of his characters. But I just watched all of the Alien Predator movies, so I knew this right off the top of my head. But it's such a hard question, regardless. But Patriots delivered the TKO on Team Heroes, and they advanced to the Schmoedown Spectacular in December.
Yeah. Oh, before Mike Blevins comments in the YouTube section, by the way, I meant to just say Michael Bain instead of Bill Paxton. Michael Bain is who came to mind immediately, excuse me, not Bill Paxton. But anyway, yes, they are moving on to that. Are you ready to talk about Inman Sneider?
Yeah, we did a double dose of Jeff Sneider this week, my mutual follower. And a couple weeks ago, we did not leave this in the show, but there was a tweet that we got right before we were recording.
Okay.
And Jeff tweeted the Collider logo. And now we know, I mean, I figured it out then, but I'm just saying, but now we know what he was doing when he tweeted that Collider logo a few weeks ago. So, big week for Sneider. Very big week for Sneider in the Schmoedown. And I did not expect him to completely crush Robinson here. I thought that it would be a bit...
Inman?
Robinson, right?
Jason Inman?
V. Robinson?
That's his wife.
Oh, Inman. Sorry. Brain fart.
That's okay. I knew what you meant.
I'm sure I'll hear about it in the comments. But
I knew what you meant. It's okay.
That was actually on purpose. I just didn't sell it very well.
Sorry.
But yeah, Sneider kicked his ass. I mean, it was... I don't have any specific moments. I mean, Jeff is a factor. I mean, I've been following Jeff for a long time. He's been following me for a long time as well. But he's a factor in the Schmoedown. So what was your turning point in this match?
Look, I agree. I mean, I've sort of debated if I'm a fan of this guy. I know that he's sort of purposefully a heel, and he loves that about himself. But look, I agree. I mean, he showed up. And I'm a fan of Jason Inman too, but he showed up. He did a great job. He's impressing me. And I don't know, I'm starting to become a fan of him, even more so. And I thought that the round 2 burn, just to recap for everyone, when when Inman spun the wheel and got War, and Sneider called him out and said, I'm paraphrasing, are you man enough to go with War? And Inman's burn was, since I'm the only person in the studio that's actually been to War, I will go with it. and the studio went nuts. Everyone freaked out. Sneider left his seat for a moment because he couldn't believe that he just got faced by Inman. It's arguably one of the best burns in Schmoedown history. I agree, but it didn't work out for Inman. It totally... I'm more impressed with the fact that Sneider, I don't know if he purposefully did it, but he found a way to get in Inman's head, and Inman got cocky, and he went with war. And the only reason why I have a problem with this, for one, he probably regrets it, because he didn't get... I don't think he got any of those right. Yeah, I don't think he got any of those right in the round 2 when he spun war. But
when he made that burn, though, did he make sure that John Roca was not in the building?
I guess John, I didn't hear Roca yelling in the background, so I think he might have meant that he might have been saying he's the only person at the table who's been to war, even though he said I think he said the only person here. So he's probably just thinking right there at the table, not the entire studio. But I never heard Roca mouth in either.
He made an interesting comment, a questionable comment, I should say, in his post-match interview. Inman, or V. Robinson, that is. So that wasn't the only courageous thing he said this week.
Look, my problem with that, though, is in the intros, when they're briefly discussing their strengths, Inman talked about how he was going to get it if he went sci-fi fantasy. He can obviously do well in the match if he gets comic book movies. And the fact that he let Sneider get in his head and go with something that didn't play to his particular strength, I just kind of thought that was a weak moment. Like, without a doubt, I thought Inman would have spun again, and that's absolutely what he should have done. I know hindsight's 20/20, so it's easy to say that now, but when he did that, it just didn't make any sense to me. Like, the burn was great, but look at what it means for the actual match, and it did not serve him at all to do that.
Here's the thing about these kind of matches. This is not a matchup with a lot of history. These guys don't know each other. But these type of matchups are necessary in order to build the next Mance v. Roca. You got to have these matches in order to create new rivalries. So I know some people may not be satisfied with the drama of this matchup, like a Mance Roca, like a Mance or a Roca Harloff, etc. But you have to have new pairings to see what can come of them.
But would you go as far to say that Sneider and Inman have become an actual rivalry, though?
It's hard to say because a lot of these rivalries are increased by the fans and the energy that they put behind them. So we'll see how the fans react. It's impossible to say, but Mance and Roca is a special thing. Roca is such a character in comparison to these two guys that I don't know if there's enough for the fans to grab onto. Is the tank top of Jeff Sneider enough to become a meme? I don't know. We'll see.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But you've got to have these matches, like I said. I mean, it comes with the territory. You've got to create new rivalries. You've got to grow the league, and giving other pairings a look is important.
What do you think is easily the worst topic in the Schmoedown? And I'm not saying like this topic has no room to be in the Schmoedown at all. I'm just saying absolutely the toughest across the board. Do you have something that you'd spin and you would just absolutely cringe if you got it?
If I got animation, I'd be screwed. I don't care about most animation unless it's the classics in the 90s, the early 90s. I am absolutely screwed. There's just too much animation these days. I mean, every other week it seems like we have this big new Pixar thing or Disney thing or cars and dogs and cats and zebras. I mean, every week it's a new damn animation thing. So I would be absolutely dead in that category. The rest of it, I feel good about.
I think that easily the worst one is movie taglines. And I don't see myself getting any of them. Like, there are a few random ones I know, like Alien in Space, No One Can Hear You Scream. They're like particular ones that I could get, but every time this has come up in the Schmoedown. I haven't gotten a single one. It's easily, in my opinion, the absolute most difficult. And I don't know if I'm the only person that just doesn't look at those on movie posters anymore. I don't even know if they still put them on movie posters as much as they used to. The only time that I thought that you could actually check on a movie tagline is on IMDb if you felt the need to look that up. So I find that extremely difficult, even more difficult than movie release dates. So the fact that Inman got it made me cringe in the third round.
See, that's the thing. I mean, there's enough information in my case to where I can at least lobby a guess. Like the one last week that Kara Warner did not get, which I was surprised by, which was Clueless. I feel like there was enough information there to at least warrant a guess. And in that case, I just knew it. But I wouldn't be intimidated as much by that category. And you're right. We don't see them as often. I don't think they're part of the big blockbusters, especially in the comic book genre. It's more of the more personal stories tend to have those kind of tagline stories now. But I haven't really noticed them to the degree that I used to. You're right.
Yeah. I don't know. I think for the most part, I see what you're saying, but I think for me, for the most part, they all just can be about anything. Like, there was one, I can't remember what the tagline was, but Inman's guess was how to lose a guy in 10 days. And I'm thinking about what that tagline could actually be, and I could have named like 1,000 movies that it could have applied to. I mean, it's difficult.
This was also the point. I still think movie release dates would be one of the most challenging, just because you get no help with multiple choice, as Mark and Kristian learned. Right.
It was also at this point in time when, like, the third round was about to end, and I looked at the time, and there was like 20 minutes left in the Schmoedown. I was like, what the hell? Because the length of the Schmoedown was like a normal length. I think it's like 35 minutes. Yeah, it was the quickest Schmoedown. Well, the reason that is because the video ends, and then there's like 10 minutes of dead air. I guess there was an editing error. But without that dead air, that's like the shortest Schmoedown match that we've had, even shorter than Umberto and Jeff Sneider. So
they added the dead air just because some people could tell the outcome of matches based on the length. Like some people were telling like certain matches were, going to be quick outcomes because the lengths weren't that long. So they decided to add all this dead air just so every length looked the same. I think that was the reason, at least.
Well, actually, here's what I got from it.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay. I think you're wrong, but I'll let people decide, and maybe Kristian will give us some insight. But if they edit, I know that Ellis and Kristian edit their reviews on Adobe Premiere. I also edit on Adobe Premiere, and there have been times when I've uploaded like 8-minute videos and found that it took it was like a 20-minute video. And what happens is your video ends where you think it ends, but you've accidentally left a clip at the far end of your timeline and you didn't catch it, and then it renders that entire dead space until that final clip. So I went to the very end of the video, and sure enough, there was a sound effect at the very last second. So I think that's actually what happened. It was just an editing error. I
gotta correct you. I absolutely know for certain that they added that space for a reason, so that people could not figure out whether it was a quick outcome or not. This is definitely intentional. I'm sure on that part. I'm absolutely sure on that part. I bet anything about that.
Did Jeff Sneider DM you?
He did DM me while we're doing this and let me know.
Thank you for helping me out there.
I know. Sorry about that.
Okay. So look, there was some interesting stuff that came from this at the end, though. Of course, Sneider challenged Stuckman and Inman.
And he accepted.
Yeah, he did accept on Twitter.
Right before we got on here, he answered the tweet.
Inman challenged Roca or Makuga, I guess. So there's that. That's coming up very soon. I just want to mention this because I looked on Twitter and Kristian tweeted at JTE asking him what he thought of today's match. And this is just some shinfo that I'm going to throw out there. I noticed that someone responded to that tweet, and someone actually has an account called JTE Movie Stinks. So everyone, go give JTE Movie Stinks a follow. It is absolutely not the real JTE, but it's funny to think about. So
I want to make one more point. These matches that don't have a lot of history, it's always fun to see what kind of smack talk they try to come up with, because they don't have anything to really talk smack about. It's right. Like, I don't know this guy, I just want to beat him. And there's not a lot to go on when you have some of these matches that don't have a lot of historical significance. So that is why you play these matches, to build some history.
I am ready to move away from Schmoedown. I think that you have a mispronunciation of the week to tell us about. Is that correct?
I've got a triple pack this week.
Oh, shit.
A triple pack of mispronunciations. Number 1, we've got the villain in Doctor Strange. He's also the star, one of the stars of NBC's Hannibal, which was recently canceled. He's a former Bond villain as well. Some people might call him Mads Mikkelsen. It's actually Mads Mikkelsen. Mads Mikkelsen. The D is silent. Mads Mikkelsen.
Are you trolling right now?
No, I'm absolutely not trolling. I'm here to inform the people and to stop the Ashley Movas and John Campias of the world from spreading fallacies.
I've been on board with this segment. Well, okay, no, let me just say, I follow every correction that you've made. Yes, I make fun of you because I don't think anybody likes grammar police. I know plenty of...
I get more feedback about this segment than I do any other segment.
I know you do. But in every previous segment, I don't find it hard to believe. And in some cases with Gal Gadot, I've heard her correction on Jimmy Kimmel. This one, I don't know if I believe. I need you to cite your source, please.
I will send you sources after the show.
Okay. Say it again for me. It's not Mads Mikkelsen. It is what?
Mads Mikkelsen.
Okay.
This is what they say in Denmark, where he's from.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that it is Mass, because he's in various magazines that he'll say it's like Christmas or Christmas. It's not, the D is silent. That is for certain.
Oh, like Django.
Yeah, whatever, like Django. The Mikkelsen is open for some debate, just because does the Danish pronunciation carry over the same way to the American accent, to the English accent? Who knows? All I know is in his home country, his name is Mads Mikkelsen.
Okay. Well, I can't promise that I'm going to change my ways on that one. We'll see if you turn Kristian. He seems to be in favor of your corrections. We'll see where this goes.
Number 2. This is a director that just pulled out of the Flash film in the DCEU. Yet another blow to Jeff Johns' DCEU. He was also the director of last year's sleeper hit, Dope. This man is Rick Famuyiwa. Rick Famuyiwa. Famuyiwa. Great director, big loss for the DCEU. And our third mispronunciation of the week, the star of AMC's Preacher, the standout, the person who stole the show, as well as the person who apparently steals the show in Jeff Nichols' latest film, Loving. And that woman is Ruth Negga. Ruth Negga. Ashley gave such a bad pronunciation this week on Movie Talk. And I'm not trying to pick on her, but it was so bad that she should have been arrested for it, and Mark Riley should have been arrested for not correcting her in the notes phonetically. So Mark Riley, where is Mark Riley? Why is Mark Riley not listening to this segment and writing down the phonetic pronunciations to put in the movie talk notes for the host to read. It's not that difficult, Mark.
I'm not going to lie.
It's weird calling him Mark.
I'm a little uncomfortable pronouncing her last name in that way. I got to be honest.
Hey, that's what I was thinking when I heard Ashley pronounce it on Monday or Tuesday, whenever it was.
It's a little too close for
Ruth Nega.
Ruth
Nega. It's not that bad.
I can't do it.
So that is your mispronunciations of the week. Mas Miegelson, Rick Famuyiwa, and Ruth Nega.
Oh, God.
And I've got a follow-up later in the episode about a previous mispronunciation of the week.
Okay.
As someone is going to pay dearly. Before we get to our discussion of this week's live show, I want to give a quick shout-out to CRW and Daniela Marie for their thoughtful comments this week. Those of you who say great things in the comments section, you get rewarded every week. And those are the two standouts from this week. Thank you very much, guys.
Yeah, I see you. I love you. I tried to talk to all of you guys. Thank you so much for always doing that. I hope to hear from you even this week as well. Can't wait to talk to you.
You sounded like a pro athlete there. I see you. I love you.
Actually, what that is,
I couldn't do it without you.
What that actually is if you watch Bradley Cooper's impersonation of Robert De Niro on, I think it's Conan. That's what he says. I'm not going to do the impression justice, but he goes, "Okay, I see it. I see you. Okay." And that's his De Niro. But anyway, look that video up.
Does he do the face with it? The face is key to doing De Niro.
Yeah. Look that video up. Bradley Cooper is a great impersonator. Watch the Conan montage. It's one of my favorite videos. Anyway, off topic. Let's get to Schmoes Know live show number 257. We're gonna
Doctor Strange preview plus Nick Mundy.
That's right. And you know, I made a joke at the top of the podcast. I don't know if everyone got it, but I wanted to make sure that everyone knew who Emma Fyffe was, because for the longest time I had no idea who she was. But joining her at the main table was Kristian, Ellis, Brett is back, and where the hell was Mark Riley
in this episode?
Yeah,
because he was so quiet.
Yeah.
Well, there's a very simple explanation for this. Clearly, he was still suffering from Wood Ranch's chopped salad of death that he had last week. It was still lingering in his system, and that's why he was so out of it this week.
Riley, get well soon, please. I can't take another week of this. I miss you. I love you. Drink some apple cider vinegar. It'll clear that stomach right up. Is that a Kentucky thing? Do you do that out there?
No, we just buy stuff out here.
What? Okay. I've had a lot of apple cider vinegar after Qdoba, if you guys haven't been able to tell. Anyway, so yeah, that's who was at the main table. What did you think of this crew?
Well, Mark, Kristian, and Brett, you can't go wrong with those three. We met Emma Fyffe this week, and the first thing that crossed my mind regarding Miss Emma Fyffe is that she is the spitting image of an ill-fated co-host of yesteryear, of Phase 3, a woman that was once on AMC Movie Talk for a stint. That woman is Erin Darling. I was curious if I was the only one who thought this, and other people chimed in as well. They thought they saw the comparison too. I did a double take a number of times and thought it was Erin Darling. Erin Darling is probably my least favorite Schmoes Know co-host throughout history. But she's one of those people that you don't think she believes the words that she's saying, where it's like she says something, she puts it out there, and she's just praying that it lands without being shamed by people. So she's one of those people that just, you never quite believed what she was saying. I don't know why I gave such a weird analogy, but yeah, that was a weird way to have to judge Emma for the first time. And I hate to say the word judge, but that's what we do. So that was my first impression, I should say.
Ask me if I know who Erin Darling is.
How do you not know who Aaron Darling is?
Just ask me if I know who Aaron Darling is.
Do you know who Aaron Darling is, Snelling?
Nope.
Strangely enough, she went on to date Tom Green, of all people, but that's
Really?
a story for another time. Oh, and they did this thing for the Need for Speed premiere, and she was doing the red carpet with Campea. And Rami Malek, before Rami Malek was famous, actually flirted with Aaron Darling. Even checked for a wedding ring. It was a great moment in AMC Movie Talk history. That was the last red carpet premiere they ever did. So that is your impromptu history lesson of the week based on Emma Fyffe's doppelganger, Aaron Darling.
To stay on topic,
Who says we're off topic?
I'm getting the giggles. I'm really sorry. I don't know. I just say things on here. Look,
guys, it's late Friday night. It's 12:30 where Snelling is in West Virginia.
Nope.
I've been working all day, 13 hours straight. I'm delirious right now. So just a heads up.
Let me say about Emma. You know, I don't have an opinion on her, only because I just feel like this episode.
Right. Okay. Right. Yeah. Okay.
Stop. Let me.
Right.
You can talk about that. You can talk about that in a second. Let me say what I have to say.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Cody. Turn Brian's mic off, please.
Yeah.
Look, I don't think this show or this episode served her in any way. I think that Cody, turn Brian's mic off. God damn. This episode did not serve her well because, like, I'm not saying she talked about Doctor Strange, but there was such a long amount of time which she didn't say anything, and 20 minutes went by, and I feel like that we still didn't know who she was. She happened to mention that she's a huge Sailor Moon fan. She plugged her podcast, but that didn't really tell me anything. I had to ask you who she was, and you mentioned the AfterBuzz stuff. So, look, there was just so little time spent with her, and it reminded me of when they had Perry on, when I felt like I really wanted to hear more from Perry, and I didn't get it. So I hope that they have her back. I mean, I'm not going to say that I don't want her to come back on, because that's not true, but when she comes back on, I want to hear more from her. And, you know, there was a lot of inside jokes. I mean, the opening of the show was about us, and I know Kristian predicted that we'd bring that up. Of course we are. But there was a lot of inside jokes and stuff with Cobster. That was all great, but it was centered on Nick Mundy being a guest at one point, and it just didn't feel like the show for her. So I'm not going to really make any judgments on Emma. Have her back on. I want to hear more from her, but the episode overall I don't think served her, and that's probably the 7th time I've said that. But
look, everybody deserves a second opportunity, because it's very difficult to come into that place, especially on a show and a night like that, and have chemistry and be in sync with everybody. I definitely think she should come back, and I gotta say, I mean, I don't think it was her fault. I think the mix was slightly off, as we've been saying all week. I mean, it felt like the left side was lower in volume than the right side. So I kept hearing whatever noise was coming from her side and her mic more than everybody else. So when people were talking, I would hear her saying, right. Just her reacting to everything that was being said. That's the thing, though. You don't have to react to everything being said so that they know you're listening. She was being very polite. She was engaging, but you don't have to say, right, okay, oh yeah. Like you don't have to carry yourself like it's a phone conversation, because you have a mic. That stuff becomes distracting. So I got very distracted by all that, and with a little guidance, I think she could greatly improve for next time. And I think the important thing to realize here is that she's a friend of Kenny's. I think she was a friend of Kenny's already. I think Kenny wanted to try her out. They took the suggestion. I'm not gonna ruin someone based on one appearance, because it just seemed like, though, that she was a step behind the rest of the show, because she was still feeling things out. So let's give her another shot, and let's welcome her back one more time. I can't sugarcoat my feelings about the actual episode, that it just seemed like she was kind of out of sync with everybody.
God damn it, any friend of Ken Napzok's is a friend of mine, okay? Just take a note from this show.
I used to say that until later that evening.
Look, I've said, just take a note from our show. I make plenty of jokes on here, and Brian just doesn't respond, and there's dead air. So just take a note from that, and you'll do well. Let's go back to the beginning a little bit.
I don't fake laugh, Snelling.
Oh,
so
yeah,
if you want me to fake laugh, you got the wrong guy.
That's me. Excuse me. Let's talk about the beginning again. Kristian and Mark. Those funny guys, those wackos, they're doing it again, bringing us up, giving us a hard time.
Full disclosure, my stream did not play it's the Brian Davids show or whatever the hell he said. So I only heard the part where Ellis said, and I'm Ryan Snelling. So I was like, oh wow, Snelling got a cool shout out. I did not hear my part. So on my rewatch, I was like, oh my God, we both got mentioned. And again, that is why we do this show, to get casual mentions on the live show. This is something I've been working towards my entire life. Building up all this knowledge about this movie space, watching all these videos, knowing the history, knowing the lay of the land, has just to get a casual mention on the live show. That's it.
That's true. I'm a little offended, though, because why couldn't it be the Ryan Snelling show, okay? Or the Ryan and Brian show? It was just Mark had to throw my name in there, so, unfortunately what you said is not true. But I'll take that up with Ellis when I see him next in Cincinnati, when I catch him buying drugs from my friend Jay.
Jay with the E.
Yeah, correct. Look, Copster. Let's talk about pissed off Copster. This is a classic example of what we talk about week after week after week, when people pick out the one negative thing about a topic we're discussing. How much did we praise Copster last week? I said that he was the best part of last week's episode, but no, he had to pick out the one thing that we said about the Halloween portion or the costume portion. And, a week later, he was still pissed off. So just another classic
what did he
example.
say? I missed this. I missed him taking a shot. He took several shots at us, but I think I missed this part.
Well, I'm assuming, based on what the layout of the conversation was, where he said, he's paraphrasing, this fucking guy, I just want to get some appreciation. And... Gratitude, appreciation, gratitude. And then that went into a point, or that went into the Halloween, or the costume talk from last week's episode. So I inferred that Copster...
You inferred. You like to do that. Sometimes I'm like, wait, did they say that?
I'm inferring that he is commenting on us giving the costume contest a hard time last week.
But here's the thing. We've been so generous to Copster since he took over as producer. We gave him a big vote of confidence when he got the gig, and we've been extremely, extremely high praise. We've given him extremely high praise of late, except for the Dark Knight thing. The Dark Knight thing was the only thing that did not work since he's been a part of this show as senior producer. The costume thing, I'm not going to blame him for entirely. They were missing 4 people. All they should have done really was shuffle people in and out at the table so it wasn't an empty table. But besides that, he's been great. That being said, I still have a huge rant that I want to go on in regards to Copster, but please get your thoughts out.
Well, I was just gonna... It's possible that Copster was talking about the Dark Knight video. That actually escaped my memory. I think I blocked that and repressed that until you just brought it back up. But... It's also possible, I also have a theory that Kristian just plays clips of our show to people who don't listen to us.
Out of context.
Just to get them worked up. And that way he can come on the live show and troll the shit out of them. Because that's what happened. I was laughing hysterically at Kristian trolling Copster while Copster was on the mic. And... it was so great and so funny, and that leads to my main point, which was this is one of the funniest episodes in Phase 6 easily. But that portion specifically made me crack up.
Yeah, he led with the point about how they're there with Copster all the time. They now notice when his mood swings.
Yeah.
And that's what set up this conversation. Like, Cobster was bitter about the fact that we get 25,000 listeners per episode, and he tried to downplay that number as being lower, which was the week before last week's number. So Kristian must get him all worked up in regards to our show and
great.
Playing things out of context.
It was great.
But Kristian had a great joke about weekends in Big Bear with Cody when he talked about Cobster. So he was coming out swinging out of the gate.
Oh yeah. What's your rant? I'm excited to hear this.
I saw some things that really reminded me of the initial concerns I had about him becoming senior producer. It's not his ability to produce a funny segment or show. He's great at that, obviously. But there's a component to all this that requires someone to be thick-skinned. Instead, he's shown a tendency to be spiteful, passive-aggressive, and entitled at some points. There were 3 moments that really upset me in this episode involving Cobster, and I'm bringing them up for his benefit, not his detriment. You can call it tough love, if you will. Number 1, in order of sequence, he threw shade at our show up top. He downplayed our numbers, he demeaned our content, said we're piggybacking them, when every show, even theirs, is piggybacking something. Again, I've been asked multiple times why Cobster doesn't like our show. People who listen to our show know that we're fair to him, and that's why they don't get his attitude towards it. We've been nothing but complimentary since he took over as senior producer. I even praised the damn thumbnail cutouts last week, and I did a history lesson about his Big Bear buddy Cody last week as well. So I don't know if he understands the value of an after show or not, even though every show has them for the exact same reasons now. Better Call Saul has a great companion podcast that gives their fans a second thing to anticipate each week, as do many others. So in our case, I know we've become a companion podcast for many people since we talk about 2 channels worth of content or events while furthering the conversation after each week's live show. By doing this, we keep the show, i.e. the brand, on a third of their audience's minds, and that's good for their business. That sells Wildman shirts. Again, at no expense to them, we support their business to the tune of 40 hours of combined work each week. So nobody's saying Cobster has to listen to our show. Nobody's saying he has to like our show. But you don't have to throw shade at our show when it ultimately helps his place of employment. Kristian gets that. That's why he plugs us every week. I know he loves the show, but he knows the value of people donating their time to contribute to his business in some way, shape, or form. All these guys did it for years since they had a vested interest in doing so. We don't have that carrot dangling for us someday. We just do it because we love the channels. Number 2, after 4 weeks on the job, Cobster complained about the lack of appreciation for his work. He's 24 years old. He just landed a dream job for most people where he gets to play on YouTube with his friends for a living. He should be the one showing his appreciation towards Mark and Kristian every chance he gets, since his employment is how they show their appreciation for him. To quote Don Draper, that's what the money is for. Do you think Ken Napzok ever asked to be appreciated during his tenure? Do you think Kristian, Riley, or Brett felt appreciated at age 24 when they all worked at CPK together? A lack of appreciation is what drove them to create something that now employs Cobster as their first ever full-time producer. If Cobster wanted some appreciation, all he had to do was listen to our show the last 4 weeks. Millions of Americans work their entire lives and receive zero gratitude besides their paycheck. They certainly don't have a podcast that appreciates what they did at work every week. I know I would appreciate the rare opportunity he's being afforded, whether it's said or not. But if he wants more appreciation to make its way back to him, perhaps he should show a little more himself. And third, Kristian saw a loose thread with Cobster, and that was his mood during the live show. So in true Kristian fashion, he started pulling on that thread. But Cobster couldn't handle it. Again, a producer must be thick-skinned and resilient when the unexpected happens. If your outline doesn't go as planned, make a new plan. Adapt accordingly. That's what producers do. They produce no matter what the obstacle is. They take it on the chin when the talent is being difficult. And they don't let their own feelings get in the way of what's best for the show. But multiple times, Cobster disrespected his boss by walking off after the giveaways when Kristian wasn't done talking to him. And then he committed the cardinal sin after Kristian ripped him for the botched JTE reveal. He intentionally undermined the production to embarrass his boss. And sure, Kristian made it a funny moment, but that cannot happen again. Cobster's passive aggression and temper tantrums cannot alter the production of this show, no matter how funny the audience thinks it is. Howard Stern's producer, Gary Dell'Abate, he took abuse from Howard his entire career after becoming his producer at age 23, almost the same age as Cobster. Gary took it in stride, though. No matter what happened, he never undercut the show to get back at Howard. He ended up getting a nickname, Baba Booey, based on his own mispronunciation in 1990, and since then, Howard has called him countless variations of that nickname. Now it's become a part of pop culture. Watch any notable live event and it's almost always yelled. The point is, Gary did what producers do, even when the talent isn't appreciative or on target. He produced. He didn't complain. He didn't throw temper tantrums. Sure, he got upset once in a while, but he did so without altering the show in the process. Now he's laughing all the way to the bank as he's the most successful executive producer in radio history. So if Cobster can adjust his maturity level, he's going to be a star in this business because the entertainment side of it comes easy for him.
Oh, okay. I just want to mention, by the way, Facebook group, you're in the clear. This week, Brian's rant is about Cobster, so you're gonna be fine this week on the show. But a lot of, just to kind of cap off the funny stuff, a lot of great quotes talking about Ken working there. It's like a Discovery Channel watching Ken work. That was great.
It's so fitting that Ken likes the walk and talks at work. It's so fitting. When I think of someone who likes the walk and talks outside at work, I think of Ken Napzok. That is so perfect that he goes for walks with Riley. That is something that Better Call Saul co-showrunners Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould would do in Burbank, since they also work in a location in Burbank. And so they would go walking around the neighborhood to get their ideas flowing. And so Kenny must have figured out at some point that it does help creativity.
Speaking of going outside and walking around, are jeans and flip-flops acceptable out there in California? Because I know they were giving Makuga a hard time because apparently that's a Pittsburgh thing. Do you see a lot of flip-flops and jeans out there?
Well, here's the thing. Several years ago, maybe a decade ago, it was something that caught on for like a year. Jeans and sandals, rainbow sandals, designer jeans. And typically our fashions spread across the rest of the country from left to right, and they get everything that we were doing like a year after we were doing it. So I wonder if he picked it up after we got it, and that's why he still rocks it. But I mean, it's a look that nobody really rocks anymore, just because it's a strange look when you think about it. I totally understand. I totally understand why Kenny objects to it. It's unconventional, but it was popular for a bit, but not anymore. So it's fitting that Makuga still wears it.
Hey, I'm not going to give Makuga too much shit because I used to wear socks with sandals.
That's the worst look you can have.
Thank you so much. I'm a grandpa. The other quote I loved about Kristian was that RB3 can do anything and people will love him, because he downplayed the fact that all he did for a Halloween costume was wear Finstock's mask and the afro.
Right.
But that quote is so accurate. He is so right. We just love RB3 regardless of what he does, and he is impossible to hate.
Although I can nitpick him later in this episode if I really want to.
No, please don't.
It's nothing crazy. It's nothing crazy.
Okay.
But yeah, Ken was talking about creative ADHD. But there's a great moment where he's talking about, I had an office at Screen Junkie, and everyone's like, ooh, Ken had an office at Screen Junkies, and now he's got a couch at Collider, as he put it. So it's better than the couch at Screen Junkies where they were wasting him. But I like that he's giving us a change in the dynamic and a description of the change in dynamic.
Hey, if they're talking about the same couch I'm thinking of, they got that nice TV right in front of it, so I wouldn't be complaining, Ken. I would love that couch.
Some beautiful pleather.
Just to briefly talk about Brett to the Future, Makuga is I think it was Makuga that said it. He's absolutely right. There's absolutely no gauge as to what Brett's tastes in movies are, but we love hearing him when he gets to and he's not being interrupted. We love hearing him talk about this stuff, and it just to, not to talk about this movie, but it blows my mind that not an ounce of them liked The Witch.
Here's the thing. Kristian discovered a brilliant wrinkle to Brett to the Future this week, and I hope he keeps doing it. I DM'd him to keep doing it, so who knows? Obviously, I've got a lot of influence over what Mr. Harloff does.
Yeah, I mean,
he's
also. I mean, he was trying to change the name to the Brian Davids Show. So I mean,
exactly. He wants to change it to Brian Davids to the Future.
Yeah.
Whatever. But the point is, I like the idea of going around the room and asking each person if they think Brett will like that particular movie he's reviewing. And that's important because he is so hard to gauge. He is so hard to read. So I think it's a brilliant way to add another wrinkle to Brett to the Future to see what people think he's going to like in advance.
I like that idea. Wait, so did you just claim that Kristian did that because of you? Is that?
No, he stumbled on it by accident,
okay,
I think.
Gotcha.
And I said, please keep doing that because I like people guessing what Brett's taste is going to be.
I follow.
And no one knows.
I follow. Yep. I like that idea.
I love how Brett has handwritten notes. And it just reminds me of the fact that lately you've been shuffling papers during this show, which compels me to ask, do you write handwritten notes for our show?
I write handwritten notes for both Schmoedowns. I have a page.
Oh my God.
I have a page each about the Schmoedown. And then I have 2 pages of the live show notes every week.
You know how I just said that certain fashions eventually make their way to the Midwest and East Coast well after we've worn them out? I guess the same goes for technology and Kentucky. Because we're in a digital age, you can keep your notes organized in Google Docs. Why are you doing it this way?
I like writing. I miss writing. It just kind of feels like I can stream of consciousness. I can write it in note form. I like it better than putting it in Word. I don't know.
It's funny. I went to write something the other day, like a check or something, and like my arm completely gave out because I never write anymore.
Well, I was a vocalist in a band.
I'm sore from writing a check.
I was a vocalist in a band, and when I wrote my songs, I always used to handwrite them. That way I could
lyrics I get, but taking notes of the Schmoedown is not art. I mean, the reason you handwrite your lyrics is because you want to take pictures of them and turn them into artwork to sell to the kids on Warped Tour. That's the whole point.
Speaking of art, let's get to
with your tank top.
Let's get to the headliner, which is Mr. Nick Mundy.
Well, hold on. We're going too fast. I got some things I got to say.
All right, sorry.
I got some business I got to take care of here.
I'm sorry.
I got some business I got to take care of here. The Mark mocking Kristian's Predator costume. We were wondering where the hell Kristian went to last week. Now we understand that there is this big ordeal regarding this supposed lifelike Predator costume that Mark Ellis claims Kristian said was Stan Winston quality. So apparently, as per our understanding, Kristian thought this was going to be a great costume that was going to be an instant winner. And it was, I guess, everything but that, per Ellis's point.
Yikes.
I didn't think the costume was that bad, but I didn't study it all too close. I just didn't know what he was going for as far as the presentation. So I think I don't think the bit went the way he planned, but the fact that they kept going at it about this damn costume, even setting up a bet later in the episode, which we'll get to, I love the little things that become big things in a second. Of course, Brett's mom chimed in. Who's the guy in the costume with the giant moose knuckle? Thank you, Brett's mom. We love you.
What I appreciated most about that, and this sort of goes back to Kristian giving Copster shit, it was like, I don't recall a time when they were actually like making fun of each other, what they did on like the previous week's show. Like, you know what I mean? That it felt different, but I loved it. Like, it just felt like they were giving each other shit and talking about what didn't work about last week. I mean, is that how you interpreted it? I mean, isn't that safe to say?
Well, yeah, but that led to other battles between them. I mean,
Absolutely.
Kristian was going at it with Copster. He was going at it with Ellis. I mean, when Yawn Gate happened, Ellis went crazy over Yawn Gate.
There was always that dynamic, and that goes back to what I said about what made it so funny, is that they were just giving each other shit, and it was fantastic.
See, Kristian is going out of his way to prove to me that he can recapture his Phase 3 energy. So by the end of the show, in the last half hour, he's crashed. That's why he started yawning, because he gave us so much energy up top.
Well, I'm going to give credit to Copster just so he doesn't have a chance to whine next week. I'm just going to say that that's due to Copster.
By the way, I love when he promoted our show and mentioned to everybody to rate and review the Schmoes Know podcast in iTunes. I love how he told the audience about our numbers, 25,000. And then he talked about the other shows. He's like, oh, they're doing really good. Like, he couldn't quantify them. And he just gave this quick little, really good, really good. So Copster in that moment, I'm sure, was breathing fire, which, again, was a theme this episode. Copster was very bitter throughout this episode. Like you said, Kristian kept trolling him, especially during his giveaway reads. I mean, Copster stormed off at the end of his giveaway reads when Kristian was still talking to him.
Yeah.
And he had to rush back on. I mean, what was your take on all this Kristian Copster stuff? And do you think it ever became more than just shtick? Do you think there was ever a point where Kristian was genuinely upset with him?
Oh, God, no. No, I don't think there was actually any ill will whatsoever. I think you sort of explained it earlier, how I feel like they were sort of playing up this kind of dynamic as seen on Howard Stern. I think that, like I said, everyone was getting shit that night. I think it was just particularly funny to play up the fact that he was already pissed off, so he just kind of became the target. I don't think there's actually any ill will at all. And
let me just say, Baba Booey on the Stern show, he would get upset. Like, he wouldn't dish it back to Howard and say, like, Copster at one point said to Kristian, fucking pay attention. Like, Baba Booey would not talk back like that. He would just take it. And he took it for 30 years and has become the most successful executive producer of a radio show there is. So he made a living out of taking crap from his boss. And so Copster is not exactly sitting down quietly and taking it from Kristian. So I feel that there was a moment, though, where Kristian got genuinely upset.
No, I mean,
with Copster.
I mean, that's fine. I can see how you would get there, but I'm thinking of something I can connect with more is Dan Le Batard and Stu Gotts. I think there's a lot of that dynamic, but I don't think it ever goes, and I don't think it ever crossed the line in any way. So,
well, after the show, they kiss and make up, but in the moment, I do think tempers can flare, and there can be moments where they're upset with each other. I mean, we're only human, but Ellis got this great moment in regards to Kristian's absence at the Sunday panel for Schmoes Know. And it was a quick little comment. I'm not sure if everybody heard it, but he said the predator had to hunt that day. So the jabs kept going in regards to Kristian's costume, as well as his absence, as well as everything else. So, what was Ellis on to your satisfaction this week? I know he was off last week, in your opinion. So was he on this week for you?
Yeah, Ellis returned to form. I thought he did a great job this week. I talked to him briefly after the show. We caught up quickly. I was happy to hear from him, and I don't even know. I don't even know if he heard what I said last week. Apparently not, because he didn't even address it, and he claimed to be me on the live show. So I think we're all straight. But no, he did a great job. And you know who else did great? And this is all I want to say about it. But I thought Makuga was on point too. I thought he got some good stuff in there. He was a great addition to the show as well. So I was very pleased with him.
It's strange. This is the first show where I've had nothing bad to say about Josh Makuga. That just means how hyper-focused I am on Cobster this week. And how upset I am at Cobster this week. And how distracted I was by certain other elements of the show.
Okay.
But we've glossed over this. I have to ask you. We noted this earlier, but we didn't talk about it. Kristian has threatened to retire from the Schmoedown if he loses to Magic Hat coming up in, I think it's late November is the match. So they talked about his tweet on the show. Kristian said he doesn't want to be JTE, that it just becomes a laughing stock how often he loses. What is your take on Kristian's threat to retire?
So last week, I learned the hard way that I am no longer going to go against anything that Kristian declares or chooses to do. I'm referencing the fact that I had a problem with movie release dates, and he showed me up linking videos and calling me out on Twitter, just telling me that I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. So, look, my first reaction to it was like, come on, man. But when I actually heard him explain it, I can see why his integrity is on the line. He wants to, if he has to, leave with dignity. I totally get it. It's sort of the best analogy is like a TV show writing its finale instead of getting canceled, and it's sort of that's just how I see it. So I think his decision actually makes a whole lot of sense. With that being said, I pray to God that he wins that match, because the last thing I want is for Mr. Prez to have to resign from the Schmoedown. So.
Here's the thing. I didn't get a chance to talk about this with him when he was giving me the script for this week's episode of the Schmoeville After Show. So I just wanted to get my thoughts out there right now. Kristian, please don't retire. You just gave us Roca v. Harloff. You are a threat to beat anyone. There's no reason to step away now. No reason. Especially Magic. You cannot let Magic Hat drive you from the game you created. You cannot let Magic Hat hold that over your head the rest of your life, that he drove you into retirement. I will not let this stand. I will not let Magic Hat get that credit under his belt or that notch on his bedpost. I won't let that happen.
Harloff, if you're listening to this, please, for the love of God, if anything, spare me. Because the second you retire and give Makuga that satisfaction, Brian Davids is going to write a 30-minute rant and
it's already written
and read it aloud on the podcast. So please, for just reconsider retirement, because you're gonna spare me and the 25,000 listeners that listen to this show of his ridiculous rant. Thank you.
Did you notice, after Brett called the witch a snooze fest, did you notice that Cobster was rushing them to break? Like, there was a moment where he yelled out something about going to break.
I didn't notice that, but I did towards the top of the show catch that Harloff told Ace to shut up about something. So I don't know if
I didn't catch that either.
So
damn it. There was a moment with Brett, though, where it seemed like for a second that they censored an F word. I don't know if you caught this. And I replayed it a couple times, but ultimately he just hesitated like he was about to drop an F-bomb, but held himself back. Like, there's this very particular moment where he's like, as he's calling it a snooze fest, I think, but I thought for sure it was censored, but it wasn't on rewatch. But the way that he hesitated, it almost made it sound like it was censored. I don't know why I'm bringing this up. It was just a detail that caught my ear several times. But I've got another example of the Nightmares crew going to bat for horror on other shows. Riley had to put up the argument how much he loved The Witch. Of course he loved The Witch because he was on another show besides Nightmares, and he has to be the defender of all things horror on other shows when he's not on Nightmares. So that's a perfect example of what I've been saying all these weeks about the Nightmares people going to bat for horror when they're on other shows. Maybe as a way to promote Nightmares a bit, but they just have to be the horror ambassadors when it comes to other shows and talking about movies like The Witch.
Hey, I'm in the mood for horror right now. I agree. I actually enjoyed The Witch, so I'm on that train right now. Look,
I haven't seen it, but I hear obviously the language is a problem for some people. I'll have to watch. But how great was Brett's kid's Halloween costume? How scary was that costume for a
great.
kid?
It was pretty great. I was freaked out. I'm sure Makuga.
And Makuga, yeah, Magic Hat, for some reason, actually the only thing that I'll nitpick about Magic Hat this week was that he kept tweeting during the show. There were several moments where the camera would cut to his side of the table and he's just on the phone doing whatever.
Hey, that's Toad Hop for you. That's what he did during Toad Hop. And Copster's trying to capture that magic.
He's not... Touche. That is a great point.
Thank you.
The Witch spoiler talk was very frustrating, though, because the spoiler alert button was all over the place. They had already been spoiling things about it without the spoiler button up there. So
maybe
they've really got to
recent.
figure out with Brett when to get the spoiler stuff out of the way or not out of the way, because they have no way of tracking when he's going into spoilers otherwise.
Maybe too recent of a film. I think of all the choices that he's done, this is probably one of the most recent. So
good point.
Maybe stick to like pre-2010, I'd say is fair. I mean, not that, if it's 2008, be ready to hit the spoiler button, but maybe just keep the release or the reviews to pre-2010 or something. I think that might be fair, but I don't know, something to consider. That way you don't have spoilers flying all over the place. Look, I hate to do this, but I have to be Copster, and I've got to hit the gavel because this podcast is going to be long as fuck if this is going to be like over 2.5 hours. So let's
get to Nick Mundy.
Let's get to talk about our reaction to Nick Mundy, and then I'll close with a couple other points, and then we'll be out of here. So I'll just quickly say, look, I'm actually a huge fan of Nick Mundy. He is certainly polarizing, and I don't always agree with everything that he does, but I'm actually a huge fan of his. I've seen him several times in the work that he does outside of Screen Junkies, like on Conan and stuff, and I was very happy to see him on the show, and I thought he killed it. I thought he was hilarious. I don't know, not a lot of people liked him in the chat, but I didn't really contribute in the chat this week, and I think everybody there's always someone who has a problem with what's going on in the live show, in the live chat, but I thought that Nick was great, and I've never been more interested to see a Queen Latifah movie. That's for sure.
He was like Glickman on acid.
Yeah.
Like he reminds me so much of Glickman, only he's like a more demented version in the best of ways. I know Nick Mundy from a variety of things, obviously Screen Junkies, but I don't know his regular work all that well because you don't provide me the logins to Screen Junkies to watch. So I just see him on these shows from time to time. I know he did some stuff with Comedy Central, Chris Jericho for a bit. I love the fact that Kristian worked in Marty Jannetty once again. After I made that reference on this show a few weeks ago, he's made multiple Marty Jannetty references. The Rockers, the best tag team duo of all time. Actually, Legion of Doom. who am I kidding? But it was a good interview. I was entertained by it. I'm not going to say it was Glickman level or Cian France level, but it's good to have different vibes and different type of energies in this case. There were some jokes that are just all over the place with this guy, but Brett challenged him to a Schmoedown, an 80s Schmoesdown. Schmoesdown. An 80s Schmoedown. And the whole time when they're talking about, is it going to be 80s? Is it going to be Revenge of the Nerds? This whole time I'm thinking, good luck, Skalecki. Have fun organizing the Nick Mundy and Brett Sheridan Schmoedown, whatever it might be.
I want it to be known that after Skalecki texted Ellis and Ellis mentioned him on air, I texted Ellis purely because I was jealous and I wanted to see if Ellis would read my text out loud on air, and he certainly did not do it. So I don't know. Maybe that is a slight. Maybe Ellis did hear what I had to say about him last week. But anyway, that was funny. I agree. That's what I thought of. Poor Skalecki. He's gonna.
Snelling, when are we gonna talk about Doctor Strange?
Well, unfortunately, we're not, because I'm not going to see it until after we have recorded this podcast. But
I was imitating the chat room. Jesus.
Oh, I didn't pick up on that at all.
Come on. Kristian with a great troll voice. You guys said this was a Doctor Strange show. Like Kristian with a great rant, of course.
Who are these people? I just don't get it. Who is coming into the Schmoes Know Show that would get so upset to get to, like, oh my God. I'm trying to keep my composure. I just don't know who finds the Schmoes Know Show that A, doesn't already know what it is, or B, hasn't been suggested to them by someone else who has to have given them some idea of what they're getting into. Like, there's no way in hell I could have just stumbled across this live show. Like, I don't get who these people are that still don't understand the format of this show. Who are these people? These are the kind of people that they mentioned and joked about and theorized that they're just empty people, empty YouTube accounts that aren't actually people. That's what it has to be, because I don't get why. I don't know. At least we get the great, funny Kristian troll moments where he gets to make fun of people. I love those moments. But the existence of those people drive me insane.
Just to wrap up Nick Mundy, he was acting like he was terrible at trivia, and yet he went on to dominate the trivia portion that they did with him. So I think he's going to smoke Brett whenever they end up playing.
Definitely.
Good luck, Skalecki, once again.
Definitely.
We have to talk about the blown shot that spoiled JTE's arrival at the main desk. This was a huge moment. Kristian went crazy over this. This set up another moment, of course, later in the episode. That's when Kristian called the show a debacle, and they had fun with that word. And everybody's been saying, debauchery and debacle lately. And JTE bad luck continues to follow him, as they said. And Ken's here 1 week. Everything goes crazy, as JTE said. And JTE once again talking about the LA Metro, the LA bus, since that's what he has to take to get to the show now, or to get to work in general, who knows. But that's when they did their Doctor Strange review. I don't know if there's anything significant to point out about that.
Nah.
Ellis had a great joke. It was not filmed in Pittsburgh, Makuga. But Makuga liked it more than I thought he would, I must say that. But there was a moment during the review where Cobster zoomed in the camera on Kristian's face.
Great.
Because Kristian gave Cobster a hard time about the blown shot that spoiled JTE's arrival at the main desk. So this is the moment where I thought Kristian was genuinely upset. And yeah, sure, it was funny. He acknowledged it was funny, but he was not happy about this for a variety of reasons, because it was so close to the first blown shot. But it kind of embarrassed him in the show. You undermine the production just to embarrass your boss. I think as someone who's also a boss of other employees, I feel like he was genuinely upset in that moment. That's just the sense I got.
I think that Kristian is he's not a comedian first, like Mark Ellis is. But Kristian is a comedian, and I think that in the middle of the show, it might not have been the ideal thing, but I think he can definitely appreciate it. It's funny. Kristian, it was funny. We all loved it. And
yeah, you are playing it safe this week.
No, I'm going back to I'm going back to when you remember the huge
you're a cumber bitch.
Do you remember when they were talking about us 2 weeks ago, and Sasha said to Kristian, "What would you do if the Schmoeville guys didn't like you?" And he said, "Well, that's a different story." I think he just kind of has fun being poked at, and that sort of displays it in a way. But he was in the middle of talking, and it just distracted him, so he didn't like it in the moment. But he knows it was funny. And
it was funny, but Copser was getting back at him for giving Copser a hard time about the blown JTE reveal. So I thought he was already upset about the blown reveal, but I thought he was genuinely upset in that moment because Copser chose the decision to undermine the show at his boss's expense and at Copser's expense too, because those moments reflect on the producer as well. So yes, it was funny in the moment, but in hindsight, it's not something that you want to support ever again. It's not something that you want to make a trend of, where they have these back and forth wars that involve the production quality of the show.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you just said. I don't want them to just go crazy and do anything that detracts from the show or takes away from the show. But I just thought this in particular fit perfectly, and I thought that it was all in good fun, and I think everybody enjoyed it. So, and people probably, and if anything, Kristian loves when people are talking about stuff and commenting about stuff, and I'm sure I wasn't in the Facebook master post at the time, but I'm sure everyone went nuts over it. So it worked out. It was fine.
There's a great moment when they were discussing the Wonder Woman trailer reaction. Riley said it was his favorite trailer of the year, more so than Logan. JTE visibly got upset and disagreed, and he got mocked for that, of course. Just a great highlight moment, though.
Wait, Riley was on this episode?
Yeah, the chop salad of death. The side effects kind of subsided for a few minutes when talking about the Wonder Woman trailer. However, I must say, the Logan trailer is still hands down better. But Beauty and the Beast, Mark and Kristian went to war over the box office. Mark said that it's going to gross $200 million or more in its opening weekend. Kristian was crazed over this prediction. So they bet each other that the other has to wear the Predator costume based on who's right. So I think this is an easy win for Kristian, as this movie's not going to gross $200 million in its opening weekend.
No, Ellis is out of his mind. That's all I have to say about it.
No chance.
He was high or drunk off his ass when he said that.
The news. Ken Napzok, his first news since he's been working at the office full-time during the week. Well, I've been teasing this rant for most of the episode, and it pains me to do it, since Kenny Napzok is a man I respect a great deal. But he called down the thunder by saying Godot intentionally, since he knows that the pronunciation I've been touting on this show is Godot. Keep in mind, I correctly touted Michael Giacchino, or as Ken would say, Giancino. I think Ken has grown so accustomed to JTE mispronouncing everything all these years that he forgot what a real linguistic opponent can be like. But after the show, Napzok and I got into a bit of a Twitter feud over Godot. The thing is, I've had these arguments before, verbatim, and that's why I decided to do something about this over a year ago. I didn't just check every YouTube video or rely on a faint memory of an Israeli talk show that I watched years ago like Ken first referenced to me. I've talked to educated Israeli American people in order to understand the American pronunciation versus the Israeli pronunciation. And despite the umpteen videos where the Israeli media, Gal herself, or the American media, per Gal's instruction, are saying Godot, Ken's main argument is that the Israeli accent yields Godot, even though they're really trying to say Godot like his English pronunciation. However, 4 Israeli Americans have clarified to me, including a guy named Yossi Berman, who's been pushing for the proper Gadot pronunciation the last 2 years. He said Israelis are trying to say Gadot, as we would say here, only their accent doesn't say it as defined as we would. So, for them, Gadot is the more abrupt Gadot, which is something I referenced on this show a few weeks ago. All of my sources said that their accent can sometimes confuse people into thinking that they're saying something like dot in this case. If they pronounced our word dote or doting, they would say dote. If they said our word boat, they would say it like boat. So the abruptness and tongue placement confuses some ears into hearing dot or bot. And while Ken is right that certain name pronunciations change from language to language, there's not a universal rule that applies to every name in every language. So in the case of Gal Gadot, the name just becomes easier to say because we don't have to say it with an Israeli accent. In the case of Brigitte Bardot, the French actress and singer, we just say it like she would say it, Bardot. So let's recap. Israel says Gadot, Israeli Americans say Gadot, and Gal herself not only says Gadot, but she tells the American media to say Gadot, like she did recently through Glamour magazine, James Corden, and Jimmy Kimmel, whom she just visited for a second time. And yes, he said Gadot again, which she confirmed is accurate during her first visit. And anyone who knows Kimmel's legendary work ethic knows how detail-oriented he is when it comes to his guest pronunciations. Even the SPR experienced Sasha Pearl Raver once contacted an Israeli friend of hers during a Schmoes Know Show, and that friend said Gal Gadot in English. I'm also going to reach a little bit and say that Ken might be partial towards Dot just because his own last name ends in a short O sound, Napzok.
Okay.
So in his country of origin, I'm sure they say Napzok completely different from how we say it here in America. But that doesn't mean the same rules apply to an Israeli name like Gadot. So folks, if you're going to challenge me, come at me with real evidence, not a tweet about your faint memory of an Israeli talk show that you watched years ago which supposedly said Gadot when they don't pronounce it that way. For the record, that Israeli talk show ended up being one of the many video sources I've compiled that all say Gadot. I already know I have a mountain of evidence and testimony to support how I'm saying it. The question is, do you? Lastly, because I'm that confident in the research I conducted, and for the fact that I'm just sick of having the same argument on loop the last 2 years, I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is. I've already sent Ken a minimum wager of $300 if he decides to take the Pepsi challenge. In the meantime, there's not a single piece of evidence or testimony from an authority on the matter that says that the Israeli pronunciation of Gadot becomes Gadot in English. So to paraphrase Tommy Boy, sometimes it's best to just take the butcher's word for it, then risk another rant like this one. Kenny, I love you and I forgive you.
Alexa, cancel my Audible subscription. Thank you. You know, I felt like I was listening to Bill Maher after New Rules and all that. And I'm comparing our wavelengths right now, and it's like I'm not even here. That's hilarious. I'm laying the gavel, my friend. That was just nothing I can say will top that. That's for sure. So let's wrap it up. I hope everyone enjoyed this extra long episode. It's gonna be long, almost 3 hours. My goodness. Look, we will be back next week, of course, for Schmoeville number 33. Let's tell the people where they can find you on the internet, Brian.
You guys can follow me, Brian Davids, on Twitter at BDF331. Check out my TV film podcast at filmschlubspodcast.com. Don't forget to rate, review the Schmoes Know podcast feed in iTunes.
Definitely. I am on Twitter at WhatUpSnell. I love talking to you guys on Twitter, so hit me up. And yeah, check out my new podcast that I'm doing with my friend Jay with an E called Sight and Sound. We just got the YouTube channel up and running. I think he just posted a video. We're on pretty much every single social media platform at Sight Sound Pod, or just type in Sight and Sound. We could also use some ratings and reviews on iTunes. We just closed the doors on our giveaway that I've been mentioning on the past couple episodes in Schmoeville, and I'm going to reach out to those people this weekend so that you can get your Star Trek Beyond Blu-ray and your Schmoes Know t-shirt. Well, all that said, I'm Ryan Snelling.
And I'm Brian Davids.
See you next week on Schmoeville After Show. Good night, guys. Or good morning. Good night doesn't work.